When Mark inherited the truck from his uncle a few weeks after the funeral, he had mixed feelings. The grief was still raw, and he missed his uncle terribly. But practically speaking, the timing was perfect. Mark badly needed a new vehicle. However, the situation took a turn for the worse after his aunt called and forced Mark to make an unusual discovery. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Mark's uncle was a truly loved family man. He was the glue that held the family together, always ready with a kind word or sage advice. He was also the one everyone turned to when something needed fixing. So, when the family gathered at the notary 2 weeks after his passing, the mood was somber. Nobody was ready to think about inheritances, not yet. Yet, when Mark heard what his uncle had left him, his eyebrows rose. His uncle had bequeathed him his prized truck, something Mark had long admired. Mark felt grateful but also suspicious. Why this gift? He wondered. Is there something more to it? Mark had admired the vehicle for years. It was always kept locked away in his uncle's barn, rarely driven, but spotless. His uncle treated it like a precious gem, cleaning and maintaining it obsessively. Even strangers couldn't get too close. If anyone asked about it, his uncle would act unusually tense. Mark would soon discover there was a reason for that behavior. Mark didn't want to dwell too long on mystery or sentimentally needed the truck. As a carpenter, his old van was barely running, and a reliable vehicle could save his business. The inheritance seemed perfectly timed, but what started as a practical blessing would soon spiral into a strange series of events that made Mark wish he'd never accepted it. Mark visited his aunt after the reading. He wanted to thank her and check on her. She was grieving, as expected, but seemed comforted knowing that parts of her husband's life would continue with the family. Then she told Mark something odd. She was the one who gave him the truck, and now she believed it might have been a terrible mistake. Aunt Marcia led Mark to the barn and handed him the keys. She stared at the truck as though recalling some buried memory. "Take good care of it. For some reason, it was special to your uncle," she said, her voice unsteady. Mark promised he would. He got behind the wheel and drove off, but his first trip would be far from normal. The truck looked normal, but driving it was another story. It handled poorly, more like a tank than a pickup. Going downhill felt worse, as though some invisible force was pushing the truck faster. Mark couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was off with it. Mark's concern turned to fear when the truck nearly caused an accident. At a red light on a slight incline, it rolled backward despite the handbrake. His heart raced as he struggled to stop it. He managed to swerve just in time to avoid hitting a tree. The incident left him shaken and convinced that the truck wasn't just poorly built. Mark parked the truck in his driveway, still rattled. He knew it needed a proper inspection. Walking slowly around the truck, he looked for damage, anything that might explain what happened. But it looked perfect. Tires were good, no visible leaks. The body was clean. Yet, something didn't feel right. He trusted his gut, and his gut said, "Check everything again." Mark walked around the vehicle over and over again. Everything looked fine. He sighed, scratching his head. Just as he considered giving up, his phone rang. Maybe someone had answers. He checked the caller ID, Aunt Marcia. He answered quickly, hoping she could explain what was going on. But what she said shocked him. It was Aunt Marcia, but her voice was trembling. She didn't greet him, just asked, "Are you alone right now?" Mark was confused. "Yeah, why?" he answered, tension rising. She sounded fearful, whispering like someone might overhear. Something was definitely wrong. Mark's pulse quickened. "What's going on, Aunt Marcia?" he asked. Her response made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "I saw them," she whispered. "There are strange men walking on the property. I don't recognize them." Her voice shook. "They're snooping around the barn." Mark's grip on the phone tightened. He could hear her fear through the line. These men, who were they? Why were they at the barn? Dread crept in as he realized it might be about the truck. Mark's instincts kicked in. "Don't worry, I'll be there in 15 minutes, he said. "No," she said, panic rising. "Don't bring the truck. You can't let them see it. That's why they're here." Mark froze. Why were they after the truck? What was going on? Mark's aunt was nearly shouting in whispers. "Please, don't drive that truck here. That's what they want," she begged. Her voice trembled with urgency. "Keep it hidden. If they see it, I don't know what they'll do." Mark looked at the truck in disbelief. What did these strangers want with it? Suddenly, the inheritance didn't feel like a gift anymore. Aunt Marcia admitted she wasn't sure why they wanted the truck. She'd overheard bits of their conversations, just enough to know they were looking for it. "They kept mentioning it," she whispered. "Like they need it, or something inside it." Mark stared at the truck. It looked so normal. What could possibly be inside that would draw so much attention? Suddenly, her voice stopped. Silence filled the line. "Aunt Marcia?" Mark asked. Then, finally, she whispered again, voice tight. "They're just outside the window. I can hear them." Mark didn't breathe. "I have to go," she said quickly. "If I can hear them, they can probably hear me too." The line clicked. Mark was left staring at the phone, heart pounding. Before she hung up, Aunt Marcia had one last idea. "Let's meet at the cafe near the gas station. We can talk there, away from them. Just come on foot. Don't take the truck. And if you can, try to find a handle." They kept talking about a handle, something hidden. Then she ended the call, leaving Mark confused and worried. Just to be safe, Mark moved the truck out of sight. He parked it behind the house, shielded by trees and fencing. Then he began the search. His mission had started, and he had no idea what he'd uncover. The first few searches showed nothing. Mark checked every inch of the truck, inside and out. Everything seemed normal. He was close to giving up when something unusual caught his eye just beneath the rear bumper. A small metallic edge was sticking out. Mark ran his fingers along the bumper and nudged the out-of-place piece to the side. To his astonishment, the truck bed lifted on its own, revealing a hollow space beneath. His curiosity was now fully ignited. This wasn't just a pickup truck, this was hiding something much bigger. Mark squinted into the open cavity. "What the hell is that?" he muttered. Dozens, maybe hundreds soft small boxes sat neatly stacked under the truck bed. Mark reached in and grabbed one of the boxes. They were small and looked like oversized matchboxes, the kind used for lighting fireplaces. "That seems dangerous," Mark mumbled. Why would someone hide dozens of tiny boxes under a truck? His instincts screamed at him. Mark hesitated before opening one. His heart raced as he lifted the flap. He didn't find matches instead. Another box. Smaller, ornate, expensive looking. Trembling, he opened the second container. Instantly, he went pale. Inside sparkled a cluster of diamonds, cut and polished. Mark froze. His breathing slowed. The diamonds shimmered, catching the light even in the shadowy space. Mark's hands trembled. "Why are these here?" he whispered. He looked at the truck again, now with different eyes. He reached for more boxes, opening each one. Rubies, emeralds, sapphires. One box had a ring. Another, an antique necklace that looked straight out of a museum. Panic set in. Mark's brain raced. Why? Why did Uncle hide this? Where did it come from? His breath came fast. Mark quickly placed everything back. His hands trembled as he lowered the truck bed and clicked it back into place. He didn't want to leave his aunt in danger, but he also didn't want to be involved in anything criminal. Still, he followed through on his promise. Mark's legs felt heavy as he walked toward the cafe. His thoughts spiraled with every step. Could he really trust his aunt? Was he being followed? The cafe's neon sign finally appeared, glowing in the distance like a beacon. Mark breathed out. Aunt Marcia was already seated, eyes fixed out the window. Her posture was tense, her fingers curled tightly around her mug. Mark approached her quickly and slid into the booth. "What the hell is going on?" he asked under his breath. Aunt Marcia didn't flinch. She looked tired. "Did you find the handle?" she asked softly. Mark nodded once. "I found more than that," he said. "And now I need some damn answers." Mark wasted no time. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered urgently. Aunt Marcia turned to face him, her eyes filled with concern. She didn't look surprised. "Did you find the handle?" she asked. Mark nodded, but didn't wait for her reply. "Why were there hundreds of hidden jewelry boxes in Uncle's truck?" he blurted out, his voice shaky with confusion. Aunt Marcia didn't respond right away. She looked down at the table, her expression weighted with worry. "It's a long story," she finally muttered. "One your uncle never wanted anyone need even Meadow ever know about." Mark's heart pounded harder. "And why were those men on your property? What are they even looking for?" he pressed. Marcia sighed, clearly burdened by the truth she was about to share. She explained that the truck had been hidden in the barn for over 20 years. "Now I finally understand why." Mark stared at her. Something didn't add up. A few days ago, she seemed clueless. "How do you know all of this?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. Aunt Marcia sighed. "You're right, Mark. I didn't know them before. I had no idea about your uncle's involvement in their dealings, but I overheard them talking the day they came here. They were looking for that car, and I knew how protective your uncle was about it. After they left, I started searching for anything that could explain what happened. I searched the house," she continued, hoping to find something that could explain why these men came looking for the truck. Her voice lowered. "That's when I found your uncle's journal, buried behind the clothes in our closet. I sat on the floor and read it cover to cover, and suddenly, everything made sense. The threats, the truck, the silence, everything. The journal revealed that 4 thieves arrived on their property over 2 decades ago. They had just completed a major heist and were fleeing police. Their escape vehicle had a hidden compartment under the truck bed filled with treasure. As the cops closed in, they panicked. So they turned into Mark's uncle's barn, desperate for a place to stash the stolen goods. Mark's uncle was inside the barn that evening when the truck skidded in. The men screamed at him, waving guns, demanding he hide their vehicle. They made threats. "Store this for us, or your family suffers," one of them said. Marcia's voice quivered. "My husband must have been terrified, but he had no choice. He did what they told him." "They never came back until now," Marcia continued. "The truck sat untouched all these years, but when my husband died, maybe a record changed, or a rumor spread. Whatever it was, they came back, thinking it was time." Mark's hands balled into fists. "This can't go on," he said. "You can't keep living in fear, and Uncle's name deserves to be cleared." His aunt looked at him and nodded. "Then we need help." Mark stood, firm with purpose. "Let's go to the police," he said. "If they hear the whole story, maybe they can do something to stop them." Together, they walked into the police station and shared every detail. It sounded unbelievable, but when Marcia pulled out the journal and let the officers read her late husband's words, their faces changed. The handwriting, the descriptions, the fear, it all seemed real. "We need to come up with a plan," one officer said, "and catch these guys in the act." The officers stepped outside to strategize. Mark and Marcia sat in silence. When the officers returned, their faces were serious. "We've got a plan," one of them said, "but you're not going to like it. It's risky." Mark leaned forward. "What do you need us to do?" The officer looked between them and said, "We need both of you to help." The officer outlined the plan. Mark would drive the truck around town, playing bait. His job was to make sure the getaway car was seen, recognized. The criminals would take notice. Meanwhile, Marcia would keep her home and barn accessible. Each evening, Mark would return the truck to its hiding spot. That's where the trap would be waiting for them. It was risky, but both Mark and Marcia agreed. Officers would hide around the property. All they had to do was wait. "It's dangerous," one officer warned, "but it might be the only way to make sure they're caught." For 3 straight days, Mark drove the truck slowly through busy streets. He parked near diners, gas stations, anywhere public. On the 3rd night, just past midnight, headlights appeared. The criminals had returned. The trap was finally sprung. The thieves entered like before, quiet at first, until they saw the truck. "It's here," one of them whispered excitedly, but that was the signal. Suddenly, over 10 officers emerged from their hiding spots. Guns drawn, they shouted commands. The thieves froze. Within seconds, they were cuffed and disarmed. Mark exhaled. His uncle's story had finally reached the justice it deserved. After more than 20 years, it was over. Marcia no longer had to live in fear. The men who had haunted her family were behind bars, and her husband's name tied for so long to suspicion was finally cleared. The police thanked them both. Mark kept the truck, but this time it wasn't hiding stolen treasure. It was part of a legacy redeemed. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscription, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming stories.